human beings share time. We live in the present, we have memories, we plan for the future. Yet the way in which cultures tell time significantly differs culture to culture, even when those cultures are in close proximity to each other. So for example, the United States has a neighbor, Mexico, same continent, yet the way in which Americans and Mexicans tell time causes intense irritation between those two cultures. Germany and Switzerland are not that far away from their neighbors, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and yet the way in which they all tell time significantly differs from each other. Even the way in which cultures imagine the future differs. So for the Brits, the future lies ahead. For people from Madagascar, it enters their heads from behind because it's a completely unknowable entity. Some cultures tell time in a very strict fashion. I've called those cultures strict time cultures. So in the United States, in Western Europe, to some extent also in Australia and in New Zealand, people tell time very strictly. They live by the clock, they like to schedule things one at a time, they break up their day into tiny segments, and they try to pack in as much activity into every segment as they can. And their proverbs reveal this amazing approach to time as if it was a very precious commodity. So they have proverbs such as time is money, save time, use time wisely, don't waste time. In the UK, the popular proverbs are things like he who hesitates is lost, strike while the iron is hot, a stitch in time saves nine. In Switzerland, the most popular proverb across the board for many, many corporations and companies is the proverb, time is everything. And the Swiss pride themselves on their punctuality and their on-time scheduling of everything. But perhaps my favorite proverb of all of these comes from Israel, and it's the Yiddish proverb that says, if you want your dreams to come true, don't oversleep. In contrast, there are cultures that tell time in a much more flexible way. So the cultures that you find around the Mediterranean Ocean, that's to say Southern Europe as well as Northern Africa, a lot of the Middle East, Central and South America, are cultures that value people and the needs of relationships over time. That doesn't mean to say that they're not on time for business dealings, etc. It just means that they're a lot easier going about it, and that they will value an interaction that they have with a person over the strict adherence to an actual clock. And their proverbs reveal that. So for example, we have in Spain and in all Spanish-speaking cultures the proverb mañana, meaning tomorrow. If I don't get to it today, I'll get to it tomorrow. It'll not be the end of the world. The Philippine culture has a similar proverb, bahala na, means very much the same thing. In Turkey, they say, what flares up fast will extinguish soonest. Again, this emphasis on prolongation rather than immediacy. And perhaps a very powerful proverb that captures why it's much more important to pay attention to people than to pay attention to a strict adherence to time is the one that we find in the Middle East. That proverb says, time is the master of those who have no other master. And the constant repetition with which they punctuate their sentences saying, Insha'Allah, or if God wills it, something will happen, again focuses us to take a different look at time. But both strict time cultures and flexible time cultures believe that people have some control over time, that they are masters of time. There's another way in which cultures tell time, and those are cultures that I call cyclical. These are cultures that believe that time itself controls people and controls all human activity. And those are the cultures of Africa, of many Asian countries, and in the United States, American Indian cultures, and in Alaska, the Inuit cultures. All of those cultures live according to the cycles of nature. For example, the Maasai, a nomadic culture of Kenya, actually schedule time by the rising and setting of the sun and the feeding of their cattle. In Rwanda, time is told by the cycle of rainfall and the rotation of crops. Native American tribes are famous for living very close to the cycles and rhythms of nature. In fact, Hopi Indians have no way to distinguish between past, present, and future because they don't have verb tenses. Again, proverbs from these cultures capture that approach to time. So in India, people will say, patience is the most beautiful prayer. In Africa, people say, a ripe melon falls by itself. Native American proverbs all have some version of the saying that man has responsibility, but absolutely no power and no control over time. But again, the most beautiful proverbs that deal with this way of telling time come to us from China. We have the proverb, with time and patience, the mulberry leaf becomes a silk gown. And a wonderful example that I heard that is a more modern one that I'd like to share with you is Totsuo Yoshida, who was the director of the Industrial Bank of Japan, comparing the way in which the West does business with the way in which the East does business. He said, in Western culture, business is like hunting. In Japan and in most of Asia, business is conducted more like rice farming. Again, this image of subservience to nature, to the cycles of nature, presents us with yet another way of telling time.